Right, I'm still doing back-to-back videos, so I'm still perched on the floor in absolute crippling agony now, so there we go. Yay me for dedication here. Right, so this video, as you might have noticed from the thumbnail, is going to be a little different. Jen from Remembered Reads, who I follow and I love because she reads such wide variety of stuff. I mean, she reads so much non-fiction as well as fiction as well, and she's got great taste in graphic novels. So I recommend you go and check her out. But she did a post last month about franchise books. Specifically, she was referring to a Captain Britain graphic novel and a Star Wars novel that she'd read. I think it was Solo. I think. Not the novelisation of the film. It was one of the books that ties into it. But anyway, but her point boiled down to finding these books limiting because you are constrained with what certain characters in certain franchises A, have already got established, or B, how they are supposed to behave. And I thought she's got a really valid point there. You know, do we accept franchise books on a different level to normal fiction because they are within this like bubble that they exist within? And it doesn't matter what the author tries to do, there is going to be a certain way that these characters come out at the end because they have to still fit within their continuity of either the comic world they're in or the TV or film world they're in. Recently we've been reading the Firefly novels by James Lovegrove. Loving them to pieces. They are set at the end of the series but before the film, so we know where all our characters are heading, which also means there are certain things that can't happen. You know, there are certain characters that will not be bumped off. But our enjoyment of these books are not detracted because we're getting more Firefly episodes that we want. Very happy with that. But we're also getting those almost filler moments between the end of the series and the film of character development to explain how certain characters ended up to be where they are or how they are in the movie that we didn't get by the end of the show. So I think with Firefly, it's doing something clever within the restricted bubble the universe is. So regular people will know I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fan and have several shelves of Doctor Who books. Obviously Doctor Who falls in this category of a franchise stories, and most people will know that the BBC have been producing their own books that fit in amongst the episodes of whatever season is currently showing. So obviously for Jodie Whittaker, I've got the Good Doctor here by Juno Dawson, which was actually written before Jodie's first seasons were filmed. So all the three authors had at the time for the 3 books that came out, including Juno here, had to work on was a general outline of the Doctor. Now, the Doctor essentially is a character that doesn't really change much from one actor to another. Yes, certain mannerisms and certain emotional punches, but as a whole, the Doctor remains the same. He or she does not change. Obviously, physically, yeah, they do, but as a character, they don't. So you'd expect Doctor Who books to be pretty sort of similar, that the main action revolves around the companions, and the beauty of those stories would be the story being told, the world being told, and supporting characters. But what's quite interesting with some Doctor Who books is they really take the element of the Doctor and push it as far as they can while remaining within this franchise bubble. Now, The Good Doctor, it's an enjoyable story. I have nothing against it. But what's interesting is it tackles a lot of the themes that we thought the first series would tackle for Jodie, i.e. the Doctor's female and, you know, obviously power-hungry men don't like a strong female. That's big in here. It's quite clever, but it's nothing not done already, which is a shame. But it's a good introduction for Jodie and her companions, Yaz, Graham and Ryan. They all get their moment to shine, which is something I can't say that the TV show does. Everybody is relevant in this book, which again, the show doesn't always let them do. And it was enjoyable, but it had a place to fit it fits amongst 2 episodes in the show. We know that there can't be massive changes of the supporting characters and the Doctor herself. So it's confined by the restrictions of this bubble. Go back a couple of years. Well, go back, what, 10 years? 12 years now? David Tennant's Doctor, that's 10 for those that don't know, running around on his own at this point. So there were about 4 or 5 books set with the Doctor being companionless. So they're allowed to do something a bit different because they don't have the constraints of a set TV companion. They can do whatever they want with their companion. The Doctor, of course, has to survive. We know he survives because these are set between certain episodes in that year where David was on his own as the Doctor. But they have a lot more flexibility, I would say, than stories that are set directly between episodes and have the TV companions. You can have more deaths, you can have more higher stakes because you don't know who's going to survive at the end of this aside from the Doctor. Now I'm going to go way back. Welcome to the world without Doctor Who. The BBC has just got its licence back and we've had the Paul McGann movie in 1996. The BBC started publishing their own original stories, so these are all set after that movie, but before anything else is established. There's a lot more freedom in these books. This is quite early on in the run. I think this is the third book in the 8th Doctor run of BBC books. Some of these you can get, some of these are very, very rare, which is ridiculous. The Body Snatch is one of my favourites. We go back to Victorian England and we meet characters that we know from the 4th Doctor stories. So Professor Lightfoot is certainly in this from the 4th Doctor stories. In this series there is a specially created companion. So there is no expectation on how long that companion is going to survive and what will happen to them and whether they'll be the same person by the end of the book either. So they have room to grow and I really like that. What was really nice about this series is the Doctor was allowed to grow as well, because for the first time in ages there was nothing defining the next point of the Doctor. Paul McGann was the Doctor and that was it. There was, well, we're not getting another series, we don't know who's following on, let's just run with it. So I would say the 8th Doctor has some of the most interesting ideas thrown at a Doctor, and the Doctor is allowed to grow and change quite considerably in this series. Sticking with the 8th Doctor, before the BBC got the licence back, Virgin Publications had it. This is their last book that they have published officially as a Doctor Who story. It's The Dying Days, and it introduces the 8th Doctor alongside old companion Bernice Summerfield, who was created especially for the Virgin range of books to travel alongside the 7th Doctor. Get to her in a minute. And so this is like the swan song for Virgin Publication and everything they've done. So we got Ice Warriors in London at a time of political upheaval. It's set in 1997, so you know nobody knows what's going on. And it's really clever and great fun. But again, the 8th Doctor is allowed to be whoever the author wants him to be, within the constraints of being the Doctor. Benny is a character who's grown, she's already established herself, she's about to have her own book series at this point, and she is a fully fledged character in her own right. So there's freedom in this book. This is Human Nature by Paul Cornell. Doctor Who fans will know this story from the 10th Doctor episodes, Human Nature and Family of Blood. This is the book it's based off. As you can see, that's Sylvester McCoy's Doctor on the front. That's the 7th Doctor. At this point, there is no news of any Doctor Who coming out. Paul McGann doesn't exist yet as the Doctor. So this series, the Virgin Publication series, did whatever they wanted to. And because they're not under the BBC licence, they could do literally whatever they wanted to do. And in this one, the Doctor falls in love. That's a concept that's not usually bandied about for the Doctor. And certainly back when this was published in the mid-90s, that was a big no-no. The Doctor did not fall in love. Some would probably say he was asexual. It just didn't mean anything to him. He didn't do romance. And then suddenly he's allowed to fall in love in this book. And what's really good about the Virgin Publication run is they have that complete and utter freedom to do whatever they want with the Doctor. Certainly the 7th Doctor is brutalised, beaten, you know, abused, cruel, kind, emotional, erratic. He does everything you could think of in the Virgin Publication series, and it's so freeing for these authors to be allowed to go, well, we've got the TARDIS and we've got the Doctor, let's go outside the bubble, we can do whatever we want. These are not for children by any stretch of the imagination. So sometimes a franchise can go outside the bubble, can think outside the box and do whatever it wants. It's rare. That doesn't happen often. And normally it's a case of an alternative timeline, a time slip, or an alien interference. You know, I'm thinking of several Star Trek episodes here already. But Doctor Who's done it as well. Again, towards the end of their licence, Virgin Publication started doing something clever with their books that were set with past Doctors between episodes. It starts off with The Romance of Crime by Gareth Roberts. This is a fun little romp with the 4th Doctor and the 2nd Romana. That's Lalla Ward and Tom Baker. And it's entertaining, and it feels like a perfect book to go between Creature of the Pit and The Nightmare of Eden. Fits beautifully. And then Gareth decided, hold on, I'm going to do another one. The English Way of Death follows straight on from The Romance of Crime. It's got the same tone, the same level of silliness. It's one of my favourite Doctor Who books ever. And it's very, very entertaining. One of the last books published by Virgin Publications was this one, The Well-Mannered War, also by Gareth Roberts. These 3 books kind of consist of his end of the 4th Doctor and Romana series, and it's set between Shada and the Leisure Hive. So it's set at a point in Doctor Who where one episode never got finished or shown in the original run, and the next episode where there is a complete tonal change in the TV show. Tom has been reined in, we've gone scientific, we've gone serious. This book ends up with the Doctor and Romana being in their own kind of timeline. They've completely broken away from the TV show at this point. And it's brilliant, because then that allows for so much freedom to just do whatever they wanted without being restricted by what was going on the TV show at the time. That sounds all really complicated, but it's not, honest. What's a shame is because Virgin lost the licence, there was no continuation of this season off screen, this hidden season, this alternative season, which is a shame because I'm sure it would have been great fun. I do think Jen had a real good point about being restricted by writing within a franchise, writing within that bubble. But I think if you have a creative enough team behind it, a franchise novel could be something quite unique and quite marvellous. It just needs to be given the right set of circumstances and the right opportunity to do so. And unfortunately, those are few and far between. Like I say, for some authors, the only way they can do something different if it is an alternative timeline, or time has been changed, or history has been rewritten, or the Cthulhu have turned up and completely rewritten everything. Yeah, I got a xenographic novel that does that. But I might have 2 xenographic novels that do that. Hey, when a franchise book does that, to have that freedom to play with these characters, it can come across as fan fiction because, you know, let's face it, fan fiction is doing what we want with the characters. We don't worry ourselves so much about being constrained by an official timeline or official canon. We go where we want. But I think when it's done officially, as it were, some of the best stories can be told, some of the most creative ideas will be found. We just need to dig them out and you go, yeah, we want more like this. And I think where I'm going with this is the whole Star Wars fiasco at the moment that's going on, with the rumour flying about that the Disney Star Wars trilogy is being rewritten. It is being erased from existence. No, I'm not going to do Back to the Future either there. I've seen someone explain how they're going to get round this, and apparently in Rebels there is an alternative universe thing that was described and that something that the Force could do, and that there's lots of Force universes. And then, as my husband pointed out, oh, that's the Crystal Star, which is a book from the original expanded universe where we have this mysterious entity that comes from an alternative Force universe. So once again, Disney is not doing anything original. They've just pinched an idea from the expanded universe. Starting to see a pattern. And if they're going to go down this line, though, of alternative Force universes to explain why Rey's Star Wars trilogy never happened, that could start getting dangerous, because then you could start saying, well, let's remake the original prequels. Let's ignore them and do something else. And at which point, people like me are sitting there going, hold on, what's now considered canon? What is now considered the timeline? I kind of like timelines. So I don't mind things going off left, right and centre, but I kind of want to know where's my starting point. If I'm going to have all these alternative timelines going on, that's fine. But I need to know my starting point. You know, and if Disney are going to go down this, we're going to get rid of our trilogy and rework it or redo it, or just do the expanded universe, please. You know, are they going to keep George Lucas's films as canon? At which point you could turn and say, well, hold on, all those books Disney said don't count, they still count, because they are fitted in around that time period, whether they're with the characters that we see on screen, or they're set just within that time zone with other characters and other events going on. The Star Wars universe is huge. There are so many stories to tell. It doesn't always have to be about the Skywalkers. Potentially, if this rumour is true, we could see a huge influx of stories being told, not only just on screen, but in book and graphic novel form, that are set within so many alternative timelines. You know, if they're going to accept alternative timelines, then the expanded universe, as far as I'm concerned, is still canon. I mean, in this house, it has always been canon, but that exists as well. I mean, have Disney just realised, hold on, we've cut our nose off to spite our face, because by getting rid of the expanded universe, we've just lost a whole pile of money? And it's like, well, if we accept the expanded universe, we can republish all those books that make loads of money. I don't know quite what the thinking is around here, and obviously it's still a rumour. But if it's a true rumour, it opens up that franchise bubble. It allows storytellers to tell different stories. It allows characters we know have an established timeline to suddenly have new timelines. You know, this is nothing new. The Star Wars Infinity's graphic novels, they do alternatives to the films. What happened if? You know, the what if stories, there's loads of them, and Star Wars have already been doing this through their graphic novels and books. So Disney are not doing anything new by doing this. They're just making it official. And I suppose that leads me nicely back to Doctor Who and this whole childless time storyline that we now have, which claims that there are infinite number of doctors out there and infinite variations of the character. Yeah, okay. I mean, I've already kind of accepted that the Doctor can exist in multiple timelines. You know, that's okay. We can have the official canon, as it were, with what you see on screen. I've got my 7th Doctor novels that I think, yep, I'm quite happy to have them. They can go in another timeline if need be, or I'll feed them into the TV series. There's the Big Finish audios, which have their own thing going on. There's the comic strips as well in Doctor Who magazine. Some awesome stories in there. I'm not going to sit there and go, well, I'm not counting these as canon because they're not the official on-the-screen canon. But for the Doctor Who team to suddenly turn and say, well, all those variations of the Doctor, they're the Doctor, they're actually official. I don't know how I feel about it. Yes, it's great, but to have it so blatantly, or actually to have it so clunkingly, is that a word? It is now. Used on screen as a reason for why we have so many different variations of the 3rd Doctor, either on screen, in book, on comic strips, on lollipops. You know, keep going. That's a formal explanation. I don't need a formal explanation for having all these variations of the Doctors. I'm quite happy in holding it in my own head and accepting what I want to accept. But to sit there and suddenly go, no, they're all now canon. My bubble hasn't just been exploded, it's just grown hugely, and it's now a case of, well, whenever anybody writes a Doctor Who story, that's now officially canon because we can have this childless time thingy and there's infinite variations of the Doctor. That just seems like a mess. I know they're probably doing the same thing that Star Wars are doing and what the books have done, but it just feels a lot messier. I might have gone off slightly off point here. But anyway, franchise stories, franchise novels and graphic novels. I'm not going to dismiss graphic novels because they're awesome. And audios. There are plenty of audios out there as well. How do you feel about reading a TV tie-in or a film tie-in? You know, or listening to an original audio based in a universe. You know, obviously I'm talking Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who here. Sherlock Holmes is a different kettle of fish, I think. Let me know your comments down below. Sorry if this was a bit rambling. I sort of wanted just to talk about it, and I think I've kind of said what I wanted to say, but I don't know if I've said it in the most cohesive way of saying it. Anyway, in the description box down below, as always, there is my social media links and my book blog link. And there's a link there to a Black Book booktuber. Please go and check them out and support and go and watch their videos. Thank you very much. And as always, thank you very much for watching and happy reading. Be well.